Welcome back to a deep dive. Today we're jumping headfirst into, well, one of the most foundational and honestly kind of weird texts in Western thought, Plato's Timaeus.
Absolutely. Foundational, but definitely strange. We're using excerpts from the Benjamin Jowett translation, and his notes are super helpful for context, too.
Right. Our mission today, to really unpack Plato's big vision, how the universe got started, what we humans are, made of, the basic building blocks of reality.
All told through the character Timaeus. It's this amazing mix of philosophy, myth, and what looks like very early science, maybe proto-science.
Yeah, proto-science feels right. Get ready, because you'll find some genuine aha moments tucked away in there, alongside, well, some geometry and bodily fluids. Okay, let's unpack this.
And the dialogue, it sets the stage really quickly. It starts the day after Socrates finished describing his ideal city, the one from the Republic.
Ah, okay, so the gang's all there. Socrates, Timaeus?
Yep. Socrates, Timaeus, Critias, and Hermocrates. And they're all ready to shift from politics to cosmology, basically.
And Critias is the one who kicks things off, isn't he? With a story.
He does. And it's quite the story. He says he heard it from his grandfather,
Okay.
who heard it from Solon, the famous lawgiver,
Right.
who apparently got it directly from Egyptian priests. So it's presented as this really ancient wisdom.
A story with serious pedigree, then. What's the core message?
Well, the Egyptian priest hits Solon with this zinger. He says basically, you Hellenes, you Greeks, you're always children. You don't have any truly ancient traditions or knowledge.
Ouch. Calling the Greeks intellectually young, why?
He blames it on disasters, recurring catastrophes, huge fires, massive floods, things he links to celestial cycles, maybe.
So these wipeouts keep hitting Greece.
Yeah, periodically resetting their civilization's memory, according to the priest. But Egypt, it's different. The Nile and the climate protected from the worst of these, so their knowledge survives, unbroken for millennia.
Geography as the preserver of history. Makes
Yeah.
sense. And that leads him to talk about an older Athens.
Exactly. He tells Solon about an ancient Athens, supposedly existing 9,000 years before their time.
9,000 years. Wow.
And this Athens was a city of philosopher warriors, its constitution mirroring Socrates' ideal state almost perfectly. Supposedly the greatest city ever in war and wisdom.
So it's a bit convenient. Like Socrates' abstract ideal suddenly has a historical precedent.
Well, that's certainly how Critias presents it as actual history. And this ancient Athens, he says, fought a great war against Atlantis.
Ah, Atlantis. This is where it comes from.
This is the primary source, yeah. The powerful island civilization beyond the Pillars of Heracles. That's Gibraltar.
So ancient Athens versus Atlantis, how did it end?
Badly for both. The priest story says a single, incredibly violent earthquake and flood destroyed both ancient Athens and Atlantis.
Wipe them both out.
Completely.
Yeah.
Atlantis sank beneath the sea, leaving impassable, muddy shallows behind. Croesus tells this whole tale to sort of validate Socrates' ideas, suggesting those ideal citizens actually existed long ago.
What a setup. Starting a creation myth with a lost civilization and hints of forgotten history. Okay, so Critias finishes, and then Timaeus takes the floor to talk cosmology.
He does. And the first thing he does, which is important, is he says, we have to call upon God, invoke the divine, before starting such a big discussion.
Sets a reverent tone, and then he dives right into a core Platonic idea, that distinction between.
Exactly. Between what always is the eternal, unchanging, perfect pattern or form grasped by reason, and what is always becoming the changing, perceptible, imperfect world we experience through our senses and opinions.
The perfect blueprint versus the messy real-world copy, and anything that becomes anything in our world must have a cause.
Yes, that's fundamental. And a good or fair creation, Timaeus argues, is one modeled after that eternal pattern. If it's modeled after something that's already created and changing, it won't be fair.
So the big question, our world, the one we see and touch, created or uncreated?
Timaeus says, created. Definitely created. His reasoning, it's visible, it's tangible, it has a physical body. That makes it sensible, part of the realm of becoming, and things that become need a cause.
Okay, so it needed a creator. What was the creator's motivation? Just boredom?
No, not at all. The motivation was goodness. The creator, God, was inherently good, totally without jealousy or envy. And because he was good, he wanted everything else to be as much like him as good as possible.
So creation comes from generosity, from a desire to share goodness.
That's the core idea. The origin of the universe is divine goodness wanting to replicate itself.
And before this act of creation, the visible world was what? just chaos.
Pretty much. Timaeus describes the visible realm as being in a state of disorder.
Yeah.
The creator saw this chaos, and being good, he brought it into order.
And what form did this order take? What did he actually make?
He made the world as a single, unique, visible, living being. An animal, as the translation puts it.
The cosmos as a giant animal.
Yeah, a living entity that contains all other living things within it. And importantly, it was modeled after the perfect, intelligible animal, the eternal form of living being.
Okay, a living cosmos. How did he build its body? What's it made of?
Well, to be physical, visible, and tangible, it needed the two most fundamental elements for perception and solidity: fire and earth.
Fire and earth. But how do you stick solids together harmoniously?
Good question. That's where the intermediates come in. God placed air and water between fire and earth. And not just randomly, but in a continuous mathematical proportion.
A proportion, like a ratio.
Exactly. Fire is to air as air is to water, and air is to water as water is to earth. It creates this beautiful geometric mean, a mathematical bond holding the four elements together in perfect harmony.
So the physical structure is based on math, and the overall shape.
The most perfect shape, a sphere, smooth all around, complete in itself. It didn't need external organs, eyes, ears, hands, feet, because everything was contained within it. It had no outside world to interact with.
A self-contained, spherical, living universe built on mathematical ratios. What about its soul? You said it's a living being.
Absolutely crucial. And the soul came first. Before crafting the physical body, the creator fashioned the world's soul.
Okay, how do you make a world's soul? Is it also elemental?
It's more complex. It involves mixing three kinds of natures or essences. First, the unchangeable, indivisible essence drawn from the eternal realm of forms.
The is part.
Right. Second, the divisible, corporeal essence drawn from the changing world of becoming.
The becoming part.
And third, a sort of intermediate essence, a blend that partakes of both the unchanging and the changing, a bridge between the two.
So he mixes these three, and then I remember reading something about complicated math here.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets deeply Pythagorean.
Hmm.
He takes this three-part mixture and divides it out according to very specific mathematical ratios, powers of 2 and 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 27.
Like musical scales.
It's exactly like musical harmony. He fills in the intervals between these numbers using harmonic and arithmetic means, things like 43, 32, 98, leaving this little leftover ratio, the lemma, 256 to 243. For Plato, this isn't just abstract number crunching, it's the literal harmonic structure of reality's soul.
Wow. So the soul of the universe is mathematical harmony. What did he do with this divided, harmonized mixture?
He took the whole compound, divided it lengthwise into two long strips. He joined these strips at their centers, kind of like an X, then he bent each strip into a circle.
Two circles inside each other.
Yes, an outer circle and an inner circle, fitted within the spherical body of the cosmos. The outer circle he called the circle of the same. Its motion is uniform, representing eternal, unchanging truths and reason.
And the inner one?
That's the circle of the other, or the diverse. Its motion is variable, split into further orbits, representing the changing world, opinions, and sensations.
And this soul structure is everywhere.
It's diffused throughout the entire body of the heavens, from the very center to the outermost edge. And by turning within itself, this world soul initiates the rational, divine, never-ending motion of the universe. It's the source of cosmic life, reason, and order, the best of all created things, according to Timaeus.
So its structure, based on same and other, allows it to understand both eternal truths and changing reality.
Precisely. When the world soul encounters something, its structure allows it to perceive and declare whether that thing is the same as or different from something else, what its relations are. When it interacts with the sensible world via the other, it forms true opinions. But when its reason engages, moving with the circle of the same, it achieves real intelligence and knowledge.
Okay, that's the world soul. What about the things within the cosmos? The stars, planets?
Right. So the creator, seeing his creation alive and moving, decided to make representations of eternity within time. These were the heavenly bodies, visible, moving gods.
And time itself. It's linked to them.
Intimately. Time, Timaeus says, was created along with the heavens. It's measured and defined by the periods, the cycles of the sun, moon, and planets. And these celestial bodies weren't just rocks. They were created as living creatures, too.
Living gods moving in the heavens. How did they fit into those soul circles?
The inner circle, the circle of the other, was divided into 7 distinct orbits, one each for the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets known then: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn.
Where are they placed?
The moon was put closest to the earth, then the sun. Venus and Mercury were given orbits that have the same speed as the sun's but move in contrary ways, which explains why they always appear near the sun as morning or evening stars.
And their movement seems complex, kind of spirally.
That comes from the interplay of the two solar circles. The planets follow the inclined path of the other, but they're also carried along by the dominant uniform rotation of the same. The combination of these two motions makes their paths appear as spirals from our vantage point.
What about the sun? Just light or something more?
Light, definitely. God put fire in the sun's orbit to illuminate the heavens, but crucially, its regular movement, giving us day and night, was meant to teach intelligent beings about number.
Ah, so observing the sun teaches us math.
And time itself.
Yeah.
The cycles of day, month, year, this gives us number, time, and ultimately, Timaeus claims, it's the source of philosophy itself, the ability to observe cosmic order and learn from it.
And Earth, our home base in this system.
It's described as our nurse. And there's this really interesting bit Jowett points out in the translation. The Greek word used could mean clinging, or perhaps circling or wheeling around the axis of the universe.
Circling, does that mean rotating?
It's ambiguous. Timaeus calls Earth the guardian and maker of night and day, the first and eldest of gods within the heavens. That phrase, combined with the ambiguous verb, has made people wonder for centuries if Plato was hinting at Earth's rotation, even within a generally geocentric framework, a tiny word with potentially huge implications.
It really is. A possible whisper of rotation millennia ago. Okay, so the cosmic stage is set. The heavenly gods are in place. What about mortals? Us.
This is where the creator delegates the job. He speaks to the newly made celestial gods. He tells them they're immortal, but only because he wills it.
Okay.
Then he says, look, 3 more kinds of mortal beings need to be created. If I make them myself, they'll be equal to you gods. That won't do. So you, the younger gods, you finish the job.
So the junior gods get the task of making humans, animals, etc.
Pretty much. The creator says he will sow the immortal seed, the rational, divine part of the soul. But the younger gods must weave this immortal part together with a mortal body and soul, provide nourishment, manage their lives, and receive them back at death.
Where do the individual immortal souls come from?
They're made from the leftovers of the world's soul mixture. The same 3 ingredients, but sort of diluted second and third strengths, you might say. Not quite as pure.
Less potent souls.
Right. And he made souls equal in number to the stars. Each soul was assigned to its own star, like a home base.
A cosmic address for every soul?
Kind of. And these souls were shown the laws of the universe, the laws of fate, basically.
Yeah.
Live a good, rational life in your first human incarnation, and you'll return to your star for a happy existence.
And if you don't?
If you live badly, ruled by passions, your next life will be as a woman. If you still don't get it right, you'll progressively descend into animal forms, life after life, until reason finally wins out and you can return upward. The Creator sets this law, Timaeus says, so he himself is blameless for the future evil mortals might commit.
Wow, that's some serious karmic reincarnation tied to cosmology. So the younger gods take this immortal spark.
Yes, they receive the immortal principle from the Creator, then they borrow portions of the 4 elements, fire, air, water, earth, from the cosmos. They use these to construct the mortal human body.
How is the body held together?
Not with the diamond-hard bonds of the gods, but with countless tiny, invisible pegs. This makes the body inherently unstable, subject to constant inflow and outflow of materials, always changing, growing, decaying.
And the soul gets put inside this temporary changing vessel.
Exactly. The soul's own harmonious circles, which should mirror the cosmos, are bound within this turbulent physical body. And the body's nature, plus the constant bombardment of sensations from the outside world, throws these soul circles into disarray.
They get knocked off course.
Constantly. They're hurried, jostled, moved irregularly in all 6 directions, up, down, left, right, forward, back. These disturbances, these motions transmitted through the body to the soul, are what Timaeus identifies as sensations.
Which leads us nicely into Plato's very unique ideas about physiology and the senses.
Right. Sensations aren't just data coming in. They are literally physical shocks disrupting the soul's proper circular motions.
So how does he explain something specific like sight?
It's an active process. He talks about a stream of vision, a kind of gentle fire or light that flows out from our eyes.
Light flows out of our eyes.
Yeah. When this internal visual fire meets the kindred external daylight, they coalesce, and that union transmits motion back through the eye to the soul, causing the sensation of sight.
So like meeting enables vision. What happens at night?
At night, the external light is gone. The internal fire goes out, but it encounters, unlike darkness, gets altered and quenches itself. Sight ceases and sleep follows. Reflections and mirrors happen when the internal and external light streams meet on a smooth surface, bouncing off and sometimes rearranging the image depending on the mirror's curve.
Okay, an active, fire-based theory of vision. Does he give sight a purpose beyond just seeing?
Oh, absolutely. A very high purpose. God gave us sight, Timaeus argues, primarily so we could observe the heavens, the orderly, rational motions of the stars and planets.
To learn from the sky.
Yes, by seeing that cosmic harmony, we can learn to regulate the erring circuits within our own minds, bringing our own souls back into harmony with the universe. Speech and hearing have similar high purposes to use reason and harmonious sound to order the soul.
What about smell? How does that fit in?
Smells are sort of intermediate halfway things. They arise when elements are transforming, like water turning into air, mist, or air into water, fog. They're vapors, thinner than water, thicker than air. Timaeus says they don't really have proper names, just general types, pleasant and unpleasant.
And hearing. And colors.
Hearing is caused by a physical blow, a stroke of sound traveling through the air, then through the ears and brain and blood, eventually reaching the soul. Fast vibrations make high-pitched, acute sounds. Slow ones make low, grave sounds. Colors are described as a kind of flame flowing off objects, particles that interact with the visual stream from the eye. White particles dilate the visual stream, black ones contract it. Red involves fire mixing with the moisture in the eye. Other colors are mixtures.
It's all very mechanistic, based on particles and flows and motions interacting. Okay, let's move inside the body. How is it structured? Where does the soul live?
Well, the mortal part of the soul has its own dwelling place, separate from the immortal rational part in the head. It lives in the torso, the chest, and abdomen.
Divided.
Yes, divided by the midriff, the diaphragm. Timaeus uses this analogy of a house. The head is where the master reason lives. Below that, in the upper chest, near the heart, lives the spirited part, courage, anger, ambition. This part is closer to the head, meant to listen to reason and help control the lower parts.
Like the guards or soldiers of the soul.
Kind of. And then below the midriff, down in the belly area, is the lowest part, the appetitive soul, concerned with desires for food, drink, sex. Timaeus rather bluntly calls this region the manger, where the beastly part of us is tethered.
Okay, so a hierarchy within the body. What's the role of the heart in this?
The heart is central, the knot of the veins, and the source of blood. It's like a guardhouse. When anger flares up or danger approaches, reason sends messages, the heart perceives them, and it pumps faster, sending commands via the blood throughout the body.
And the lungs around it.
The lungs act like padding, a soft, air-filled cushion around the heart. They take in air and drink, cooling the heart down when it gets overheated by passion, like a built-in cooling system.
Clever. What about the lower organs near the manger? The liver gets a special mention, right, for divination.
It does. The liver, located near the appetites, is smooth and bright. It acts like a mirror that reflects thoughts from the mind. When reason is quiet during sleep, illness, or moments of enthusiasm, images and divinations can appear on the liver, sent by the intellect.
So the liver is like a screen for prophecy.
In a way. But these images are hard to understand. They need an interpreter, a prophet, to make sense of them. And after death, these liver visions are meaningless. The spleen, next to it, acts like a cleaner, wiping the liver mirror clean by absorbing any impurities or bitterness.
That is quite a specific theory of organ function and prophecy. What about the fundamental structure? Bones, flesh?
The foundation is the marrow. This is the universal seed, containing the potential for all life. It's made from the most perfect primary triangles of the elements. The brain, housing the divine soul, is the primary marrow, made perfectly round. The spinal cord, housing the mortal soul, is elongated marrow.
And bones are built around this marrow.
Yes, God formed bone around the marrow as a protective casing. Then he added sinews, which are a mix of bone and flesh, to bind the limbs together and allow for bending at the joints. Flesh was added last, as padding and protection against heat, cold, and impact. It's made from water, fire, earth, fermented with acid and salt.
And skin, hair, nails.
Skin covers everything. Hair grows on the head mainly, a light covering that doesn't block perception too much. Nails are formed at the ends of the digits from sinew, skin, and bone. Timaeus suggests that they're partly for protection, but also anticipating future animal forms that might need claws. He notes that thicker flesh, dull sensation.
How does the body get nourishment? How does circulation work here?
Veins form a network to carry the blood, which contains the nourishment. He describes respiration as a process involving internal fire heating air, causing it to expand and seek an exit, pushing other air around, creating flows in and out through the mouth, nostrils, and even skin pores. This constant motion helps distribute nourishment dissolved in the blood, which itself is created from digested food by the internal fire.
So breathing, digestion, circulation are all linked by this internal fire and air pressure system.
Yes, it's a dynamic system.
Mhm.
Red blood is the main food for the flesh. Growth happens when the body takes in and assimilates more nourishment than it loses when the body's own elemental triangles are young and sharp enough to cut up the food triangles.
Which leads to aging and disease.
Exactly. As we age, our body's triangles become worn, dull, and weaker. They can no longer easily break down the incoming food triangles. Instead, they get broken down by them. Influx decreases, efflux increases, and the body decays. Natural death occurs when the bonds holding the marrow's triangles finally give way.
And disease. Is it just imbalance?
Primarily, yes. Disease arises from an excess, deficiency, or displacement of the four main elements, or from problems with secondary compounds like phlegm, bile, blood, etc.
Can you give an example?
Sure. He talks about flesh decomposing into bitter bile or acidic phlegm, bone diseases from poor air circulation, tetanus from wind trapped around sinews, leprosy from corrosive white phlegm, catarrh from salty phlegm, fevers and inflammations from excess bile. Severe bile issues could even burn the marrow and fatally release the soul.
Very specific elemental causes for diseases. And he links this physical state strongly to vice, doesn't he? Sometimes calling it involuntary.
He does. This is a really interesting and maybe problematic part. He suggests that bad bodily states and excess of bile making someone irritable, or phlegm making them dull or cowardly can be a primary cause of vice. Forgetfulness, stupidity, rashness, these can be diseases.
So it's not entirely your fault if you're vicious?
Sometimes, he implies, it's due to your physical constitution, or, very importantly, bad upbringing and poor education. He says the planters, educators, parents, rulers, often bear more blame than the plants, the individuals. Jowett points this out as a tension in Plato. Sometimes vice is presented as an illness needing treatment, other times as a moral failing needing correction. It's that old free will versus determinism problem.
If health is so important, how do you maintain it, physically and mentally?
Through balance. The key word is symmetry. The good is beautiful, and the beautiful is symmetrical or well-proportioned. This applies especially to the relationship between body and soul.
Don't let one overpower the other.
Exactly. Too much focus on the mind without exercising the body makes the soul dull, forgetful, ignorant. Too much focus on the body without cultivating the mind makes the soul coarse, unbalanced, lacking reason.
So integrated development.
Yes. Don't move the soul without the body, or the body without the soul. Thinkers need physical exercise. Athletes need mental and musical cultivation. The best exercise mimics the harmonious, natural motions of the universe itself.
What about actual medicine, drugs and treatments?
Timaeus is very cautious. He advises against using medicines, especially strong purgatives, unless absolutely necessary. Diseases are seen as having a natural course, like a living being with a fixed lifespan. Interfering too much, especially with stimulants, can often just aggravate the problem. Better to manage through diet and lifestyle and let nature take its course when possible.
And underlying all this is the deep connection.
The deep sympathy between body and soul. You can't truly treat one without considering the other. A flaw in the body affects the soul's balance, and vice versa. This idea of mind-body interdependence is, I think, one of the most enduring insights here, even if the specifics seem alien.
So living well means?
It means cultivating the best part of ourselves, the immortal, rational soul that resides in the head. Those who are obsessed with mortal desires and ambitions nourish their mortal parts and become truly mortal. But those who pursue wisdom, who strive to understand the universe and keep their divine inner principle aligned with cosmic harmony.
They achieve a kind of immortality.
As much as is humanly possible, yes. They attain truth and happiness by tending to the divine within. And Timaeus adds that the greatest service one person can do for another is to help them achieve this state of virtue and internal order.
It's a powerful vision connecting personal well-being, ethics, and cosmology. Now, before we wrap up with Jowett's analysis, we have to mention those transformations, men becoming women and animals.
Ah, yes. Part of the soul's journey if it fails. Timaeus says, women were first created from those men in the first generation who were cowardly or unrighteous, reincarnated into a female form. The physical mechanism of procreation involves the seed, which originates in the marrow, traveling down the spine and being emitted.
Okay, and the animals?
They come from further degeneration. Birds, he says, came from well-meaning but lightweight men, those who studied the stars only by sight, without deep philosophical understanding. They grew feathers instead of hair.
And land animals?
Those came from men who completely neglected philosophy, never looked up at the heavens, and were ruled by the lower passions in the chest and belly. Their bodies became distorted. They walked on four legs, bent toward the earth, their heads misshapen by disuse of reason. The most senseless became reptiles, or limbless creatures,
And fish.
the lowest of the low, created from the most utterly ignorant and foolish souls, deemed unworthy even to breathe pure air, so they were cast into the water.
Wow. Talk about a literal hierarchy of being based on intellectual and moral attainment. Your physical form reflects your soul's failings.
It really drives home the idea of cosmic justice and the importance of reason in this worldview. Okay, so let's turn to Jowett's analysis. As the translator, how did he see the Timaeus overall?
What was his take on Plato's mindset here?
Jowett describes Plato as sort of hanging between matter and mind. He saw him mix abstract philosophical ideas with sensory details, mythology with attempts at early science. Crucially, Plato was doing this without telescopes, microscopes, chemistry, the tools of modern science.
So a brilliant mind working with limited empirical data.
Exactly. Jowett points out how Plato often moves rapidly between the universal and the particular, the heavens and the human body, using analogy constantly. He saw resemblances everywhere, which was a powerful tool for early thought, but maybe sometimes led him to overlook key differences or mistake an illustration for proof.
And Jowett felt the Timaeus wasn't purely Plato, perhaps.
He suggests it's heavily influenced by Pythagorean thought, especially all the mathematics and the focus on physical details. He calls it conjectural science and philosophy, presented by Plato as only a likely story, or probable account, put into the mouth of Timaeus the Pythagorean. This maybe distances Plato slightly from claiming it as absolute truth compared to dialogues like the Republic.
So maybe more exploratory than dogmatic. Jowett also mentioned Plato being mastered by his ideas.
Yeah, Jowett felt that early philosophers sometimes lacked a firm external check, a criterion of fact. Their powerful ideas could sometimes run away with them, without the rigorous testing against evidence that we expect now.
Number and geometry were obviously huge for Plato here.
Absolutely central. For the Pythagoreans and Plato, numbers and shapes weren't just descriptive tools. They were the actual principles of order in the universe. Applying math to the soul, to elements, to physiology that was key. Those geometric solids for the elements, fire pyramids, earth cubes. Jowett stresses these are abstract forms, not literal tiny particles. Transformations happen when the underlying geometric forms change.
How did Jowett see Plato explaining forces like motion or gravity?
Motion arises from a lack of uniformity. Combined with the universe's rotation preventing a vacuum, things get pushed around, seeking their kindred elements. Like attracts like. Gravity is described partly as large bodies attracting small ones, but also this like attracting-like principle, almost like a magnetic force between similar substances.
And that really tricky concept, the receptacle, the space where forms appear.
Jowett highlights this as a major conceptual struggle for Plato. This nurse of generation, this formless, invisible space or medium that receives the imprint of the eternal forms. It's apprehended by a kind of spurious reason, seen dimly as in a dream. Plato lacked the conceptual tools of later geometry and physics to clearly define this fundamental ground of becoming.
Which brings us back to that core problem. How does the changing world truly imitate the unchanging forms?
Right. Jowett points out this deep philosophical challenge. How can something divided and changing be an image of something whole and eternal? Plato uses the metaphor of an image, but the precise nature of that relationship remains elusive, a point of tension in the dialogue.
Despite these challenges, Jowett still saw the creator's goodness as central.
Yes, he identifies that as the driving principle of the Timaeus, the idea that God created the world out of sheer goodness. Wanting to bring order and perfection into existence is presented as the ultimate explanation.
And finally, Atlantis. Myth or history for Jowett?
Jowett treats it largely as a significant myth or allegory. Whether Plato intended it as history or not, Jowett notes its incredible afterlife as a legend. It captured the human imagination, this idea of a lost, advanced civilization, influencing thinkers like Thomas More with Utopia and Francis Bacon with New Atlantis. It tapped into that deep yearning for a perfect society, a golden age.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway? We've gone from Atlantis to atomic geometry, cosmic souls, to human physiology.
It's an attempt at a totalizing vision. Plato, speaking through Timaeus, gives us a universe founded on reason, goodness, and mathematical harmony. A cosmos where divine intelligence actively imposes order on chaos, and where human life, our bodies, our souls, our virtues and vices, is intrinsically woven into that larger cosmic fabric.
It's packed with, well, startling insights that resonate even today, alongside ideas that seem utterly bizarre from our perspective. It's a powerful reminder of how ancient thinkers grappled with the biggest questions. Where did we come from? What are we? What's our place in it all?
Absolutely. It shows the sheer ambition of the human mind trying to make sense of everything, using the tools available at the time: myth, mathematics, observation, and profound philosophical insight. A truly monumental effort.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. If Timaeus is even partly right, if the deepest structures of our minds somehow mirror the harmonic ratios of the cosmos, what undiscovered resonances, what patterns of the universe might still be waiting to be found not just out there in space, but right here within ourselves?